Hi, I'm Gary Alt, Open Path Life Coach, and I wanted to talk especially to the young people tonight, but it really applies to everyone. It doesn't matter if you're 80 years old or whatever, but especially to when I say young people, I mean like teenagers, early to mid 20s, or even really early 30s. I think this applies to because it has to do with making friends and cultivating relationships once you've left a high control group, especially a religious one. Um, why is that a problem? Well, for instance, with Jehovah's Witnesses, for example, and maybe other groups as well, you had ready-made friends right there in your congregation. They were just waiting to be your friends because of religious affinity and really nothing else. I mean, you might have had better friends and a core of friends that shared other interests and things like that, and maybe some very good friends. But now that you're out, you don't have that to. It's like you don't have those ready-made friends. If you were a Mormon example, for example, and you were a missionary, even in your late teens, early 20s, let's say, and you had your companion that was assigned by the missionary president. So those were not relationship you needed to cultivate. And they might have been very good friends, but again, you didn't have to work for them. So the other thing is that you were not allowed to befriend people outside of the group. Probably, we used to call them worldly people. So that wasn't allowed. So you couldn't develop the skills of getting to know somebody outside of your group. Perhaps you were homeschooled. Nothing wrong with that, except that in making friends, you've kind of got a limited social setting that's kind of made for you, so you don't really meet that many people. You might have been raised in a group or a congregation where there are very few young people your age. I remember visiting a congregation of Jehovah's Witnesses up in Newfoundland years ago, where there were, I think, about 16 people in the congregation, and guess how many of them were young children? Two, and they were brother and sister. So they really didn't have any friends to cultivate. So you can imagine that they grew up not knowing how to make friends. And then there's the fear of doing something bad, because these people outside of my religion are we just know that they're bad because that's what we're told just by merit of the fact that they're not one of us. They're bad, and so it's scary, and you could even be disciplined for it. You can get into trouble for associating with the wrong kind of people. So those are all reasons why it might be a problem, as you get a little bit older and you're out of the group, cultivating a friendship. But one thing that's good to realize is that there's a really good chance that the people you're trying to make friends with now have a very similar problem. It might not be so easy for them to make friends either. They're not going to tell you that. People don't walk around saying, "Yeah, thanks for talking to me, but I have a really hard time making friends. So be patient with me." They just don't do that. They kind of act tough, maybe, or kind of have kind of an air of bravado about them, perhaps. But you be reassured that there are a lot of the people you might be trying to talk to and cultivate a friendship with might have a similar issue. And that could be a number of reasons. It could have been just because of their upbringing, whatever that might be. It could also be because young people in particular, as they're going through their teenage years especially, tend to be very insular. You kind of, your friends are generally people that like the same music, like the same football team, what have you, and it's sort of a security blanket, and anybody 5 years older is too square. See, I'm even using an old term, square. It shows you how old I am. Or just not part of your group. So that happens everywhere. It doesn't matter whether you're a former member of a high control group or not. So that might be a problem that they have as well. And another problem that is very significant nowadays, and it's been for the last, let's say affecting this entire generation, I would say, is the prevalence of social media, which has its benefits. I'm not saying it's evil, like you might have been taught before. There's nothing wrong with it. It could be a very valuable tool. But a lot of people today just don't know how to interact one to one and how to actually make friends and cultivate relationships because it's all done black and white text, over the internet, or maybe through online video games. So they're really very much lacking in the skill of cultivating friendships. So that's enough about why others might share your issue. Um, so one of the first steps towards making friends is if you want people to like you, you really need to like yourself. Actually, love yourself first, and that might be a bit of a task because you might have been taught that it's not about loving yourself; it's about loving others. It's about loving God, loving the organization, the elder body. Loving yourself, that's just wrong. So there's a lot of confusion between humility and self-esteem, two completely different things. Humility is a great quality to have, but if you go overboard, you don't have any self-esteem. You need to have self-esteem. You have to know that you're important and you're worth something, and you have certain abilities, maybe more than others do. While there might be things that they do better than you, there's nothing wrong with that. But that confusion of humility and self-esteem is a killer. So you really need to love yourself before you can love someone else. So look at yourself in the mirror. Just spend a little time doing that, and instead of picking yourself apart, why not just tell yourself, you're a pretty good guy. Might sound kind of awkward and embarrassing, but try it and just think of things that are good about yourself and tell you so. Maybe you don't need a mirror. Maybe you just want to write it down. Just, what are some of the things that are positive about me that someone might actually like? And practice saying to yourself what you would say to others. For example, if you were talking to me and I came to you and I said, I'm having trouble cultivating friendship, and I don't really know why even somebody would want to be friends with me because I just don't know how to make a conversation. I'm awkward, and then as I keep going, I might start saying I'm stupid or whatever, all kinds of bad things. What are you going to say to me? Are you going to really say, you're right, Gary, you are pretty awkward, and you do come across kind of ignorant, I very much doubt you're going to say that to me. You're probably going to say something reassuring and loving and helpful and encouraging, right? So wouldn't you like it if someone said that to you? If you came to them and said, I'm awkward, I'm this, I'm that. So reverse the golden rule, which is do unto others as you would want them to do to you, and just make it do to yourself what you would like others to do to you. You can't always wait for people to be nice to you. It's not always going to happen. But talk to yourself the way you would talk to me if I came to you saying I'm awkward and I'm having trouble making friends. Convince yourself that you are a good person and you're worthy of the friendship of the people you're trying to cultivate a friendship with. And practice talking to yourself that way. So how do you meet friends or potential friends? There are many ways, of course, social situations. One that I'm going to suggest it saved my life really, is volunteering for some sort of organization or cause that you feel strongly about. I'll give you my example, is that I feel strongly about a lot of things. I've given a lot of time and resources to a women's resources group that helps women that are in bad situations to get their life started again. Well, that's not one that's really going to help with friendships, maybe. So, because it's sort of difficult, to kind of penetrate a group like that in a social way for certain reasons. But all right, how about, let's say, the radio station that I belong to, that I'm a member of, because it's a listener supported radio station. I really, really believed in this radio station, and I love music so much that I thought, they could use help with fundraising drives and answering the phone. So I just went down there, and I can answer the phone. I could take down credit card information. That's pretty easy to do, and they put me to work. And the benefit of that is I'm meeting other people that are doing the same thing. And there's time in between phone calls that you can talk, or afterwards you go out to dinner or something like that. Here's the real benefit, though, is that you're meeting people with the same love, the same drive, the same passion as you. If you're passionate about music and radio like I am, you're meeting people that are also passionate about music and radio, and they have the same goals. And so whatever it is, if you're passionate about research for a cure for cancer, for whatever reason, or the women's resources group I mentioned, anything you're passionate about, get involved in it. The local library, they always take volunteers to help out with whatever is needed. So the thing is that you're meeting people with the same passion, but also, what is the quality of that kind of person going to be? Isn't it going to be a charitable kind of person, a person that's giving, that gives their time without expecting really hardly anything in return? So you're going to be meeting quality people in a situation like that, and they're gonna totally enjoy your friendship. I can guarantee you that. Not every one, maybe out of 5 people, there might be one that you just don't get along with. Not just because you don't like music, but just for whatever reason. So it's not to be expected that everybody's going to be a great friend. But that's my really only recommendation I want to talk about tonight is volunteer for something that's worth it. And by the way, when you do that, you don't have to have a huge skill set. You might be a genius at something, but you don't need it. You're just like, I also volunteered at a movie theater that became a concert venue, and I went in there and I said, okay, what do you want me to do? So, well, tonight we need ushers. Can you do that? Just seat people, look at their ticket, and make. Okay, that's pretty easy. Or most of the times I would just scan tickets when people came in just to make sure that they were allowed in. So it's pretty easy. They show you how to operate the little gizmo, and you're pretty much done. So that didn't require a lot of skill. I was actually overqualified for it. But again, I met people of like feeling and passion. So now, what about what you're going to bring to a friendship, and how you're going to kind of talk to that person. First thing I would recommend is have a cheerful disposition. And I'm not saying to be a phony, because if you're in a bad mood, you're in a bad, everybody gets in a bad mood. But it's not impossible to smile, and work on, just force yourself to smile as you talk. And you'd be surprised how that actually changes your mood, and you can kind of put away some of the things that are eating at you that particular day and be cheerful. And why would you want to do that? Well, it's because who wants to talk to somebody that they just met that's just a downer? Once you have a good friend, hopefully that'll be a really good friend that you can talk to about problems, and you can cry on their shoulder all day long, if they're a really good friend. But when you're making friends, it's not going to work too well. You really want to convince them or make them feel like it's enjoyable talking to you. So just have a cheerful disposition, whether you like it or not. Just force yourself to do it, and then showing the interest in the other person. Like, ask them, hey, what do you do for a living, by the way, or where do you go to school, or and then what is it? What do you like about your job, or what are you taking in school? Um, uh, what's it like to work there? What do you not like about it? And before you know it, you're going to be saying, "Oh yeah, I got the same thing. I love my work because I love serving people, but my boss drives me crazy." And then before you know, you're telling stories, and you're getting to know each other, and you have a great time. And then, as I said before, bring something to the friendship. Give people a reason to want to be friends with you. And I'm not saying you got to give them a gift or bring money or something like that. I mean, just have some sort of value, to like being interested in them is actually of great value, because people love it when somebody is interested in them and is listening to them. It's not so much about being a brilliant conversationalist. It's being able to listen, and to once in a while just ask a nice question like, "Oh, how many brothers and sisters do you have?" or whatever. Um, so the next steps, of course, are you can think of them all your own, I guess. But if you're getting along with somebody, invite them over to have a cup of tea with you, or just a glass of water, or watch a movie or listen to some music, just something casual, like what are you doing this Saturday, or whatever, or some kind of concert event or whatever, or maybe just after the fundraisers, I would just say, hey, how many of you guys are going out to dinner tonight? I'm not going home yet. What do you think? And before you know it, 3 or 4 people would be getting together for dinner, and I'd be getting to know people that I've never met before. Last thing I want to talk to you about is being realistic. Um, Again, you have to remember that most people, uh, even those that have many friends, like you might have when you were in the high control group, you might have had 80 friends because there happened to be 80 people in your congregation. But were they all really good friends? Maybe half of them were people that you probably knew something about all of them, but maybe half of them were some people that you've actually really gotten to know pretty well, and you can talk about, some of the things that they told you. Maybe half of that number, 20 or so, are people you've actually had over for dinner, or what have you. And maybe half of that are people that actually become in your circle of pretty close knit friends. And maybe just one, two, or three of those people out of those 80 people, just maybe one or two are going to be that tight of a friend that you can just tell them anything. And I don't mean overnight, but eventually you can develop a relationship where you can just talk to them about anything, and they'd listen to you and you can listen to them. Most people don't have a lot of those kind of friends. They really don't. And I don't care who you are. Most people just have a handful of people that they can really trust and pour their heart out to. Also, remember that practice makes perfect. So you might not make friends right away. You might strike out. Like, let's say you set a goal for yourself of meeting 3 people, and attempting to make friends with 3 people this week. Before Friday this week, I want to talk to 3 people. Hopefully, one of those people will be a friend, but you can't control that. So don't worry about that kind of goal. But just set a goal of X, whatever your number is, 5, 7, whatever, X number of people I want to talk to by the end of this week. if you've been awkward and you're not too sure of yourself, there's a good chance that one or two of those are not going to work out too well, and you're going to walk away thinking, "I think I really blew that. Why did I say such and such?" And first of all, it might not be as bad as you thought, but even if it was, well, you're new at it. You've been in this high control group for all your life. And, you're new at it. It's like anything you're new at. You have to you have to get better at it through practice. And then try to befriend only to really befriend those that you think it's going to work. In other words, when you start to talk to somebody and you get the feeling that I don't think this is going to go past this conversation. I don't really think this is somebody I really want to do that with. So move on. Just talk until you're done, and just say it was really nice talking to you. We'll see you around. And then the last thing I want to mention about being realistic goes back to what I said about fear at the beginning. Um, Realize that there are actually good reason to be selective, not to the extent that the group, the high control group, the religion, what have you, taught you to, where everybody outside the group is bad, including family members. That's obviously ridiculous, right? And for that matter, that everybody within the group is good. I mean, it's just absurd. So realize that there's nothing to be afraid of just because somebody is a worldly person. But at the same time, don't be afraid of the fact that you're going to meet people that are really not people that you really want to befriend. Somebody's, could be a very bad person, frankly. And so you really don't want to befriend somebody like that. Don't be afraid of that. Talk to them anyway. You're bringing benefit to them anyway. Maybe someday they'll soften up and be a better person. Who knows? So be kind to everybody, but just don't expect everybody to be a great friend. Well, that's all I have to talk about tonight. But watch out for more of my videos, and we'll talk about other issues. But if you really want to talk one to one, you can always give me a call, and we can talk about that. And that'll be for you specifically, not so general. So thanks for listening.